So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Seth Goldman and Barry Nailbuff. Hi, Seth. Hi, Barry. How you doing?
Morning.
Great to be here.
So, Seth, Barry, can you tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do, the work you do together?
I'll go first. So I am the co-founder and TEO of Honest Tea, which is an organic bottled beverage company based out of Bethesda, Maryland.
Uh
And
huh.
I've been doing that for 15 years. And my co-founder in this enterprise was Barry.
Fantastic.
And I'm a professor at Yale where I teach strategy and negotiation innovation. And some 18 years ago, Seth was one of my students. And that's how we met.
Fantastic. Now, the reason for this call, apart from the your forming the company together that we'll get into, you've just written a book called Mission in a Bottle: The Honest Guide to Doing Business Differently and Succeeding. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the book, why you wrote it, and what's the purpose of it, as it were? Given that you're both actually, well, Barry, you're ostensibly a teacher. Seth, you're an entrepreneur, but why write a book?
Sure. Well, just as the world did not need another bottled beverage, they didn't need another book. And so for us, we wanted to tell a story about doing business differently and tell it in a different way.
Okay.
So first, the way that we do business differently is that we're a company that has chosen to sell a product quite different from that, the traditional offerings on the market. Our drinks are less sweet. Our ingredients are organic. Our teas are fair trade certified. And likewise, just as there's so many business books, we wanted to reach people in a different way and to reach different people, to spread a story about doing business differently. And so we chose to make the book in the form of either you call it a graphic novel or a comic book. And so there's a lot of visual elements to our story, to our business, and we wanted to make it come alive to readers.
I love. Sorry, Barry, were you going to add something?
Please. So, if you think about it, Honest Tea has allowed us to really achieve our dreams.
Uh huh.
And we'd like other people to do that as well.
Okay.
Hopefully, not in the beverage world. And so,
Of course.
we have really open sourced our business. That
Right.
is, we have our business plan, our financing models, how we went about creating the brand, issues of production, raising money, building a board, you name it, it's all in there. And I'd say that if we had read this book before starting out, it would have saved us millions of dollars.
Yeah,
So,
I guess so. I must say, when I read the book, was first of all, writing it as a comic book or as a cartoon, as a graphic novel. One, I think I have never seen. Well, I've only seen one or two books that have done it in the business genre, and I think what you've done is absolutely splendid. And I think it's a fantastic story. And I think what's also really, really nice and great about it, is that it's a warts and all story as well.
yeah, a lot of business books are, I had this idea, then a miracle happened, and I sold it for billions to Google.
Yes, yeah. But
And the reality is that people who start an entrepreneurial business, it's going to be a hard road, and they should understand the challenges that they're likely to face.
yes,
My colleague Sharon Oster says you learn more from your failures than your successes,
uh huh.
and so we think this book has lots of learnings in it.
I think that's absolutely fair. Both not just professionally, but also some of the personal stories that were in there as well. And I just think it felt like a full story, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does, because it certainly is a full undertaking. You cannot, as we learned, and I think as we illustrated, you can't just run a business and not have life get in the way. And so, along the way, there's the story of my middle son undergoing some serious, cardiac surgery.
Yeah,
Just as we're trying to get the business off the ground, there's just life happens, and it is absolutely part of our story and part of anyone trying to grow a business.
absolutely. So going back to the beginning and on the business of Honest Tea, did you find, looking back on your journey so far, did you find that not having a background in manufacturing a consumer beverage, was that a hindrance or a help, do you think?
Well, there's no question that in the long term, it was a help because it really brought us to the industry with a fresh set of ideas, a fresh way to think about it, and in a way, really capture an opportunity that most people who've been in the industry were missing. On the other hand, in the short term, as we were trying to find how to produce the product, how to distribute it, we were at a tremendous handicap, and that was something that we really struggled with, whether it was figuring out production, getting time on the bottling lines, or figuring out distribution and getting distributors to pay attention to us.
Uh-huh.
We didn't know what we didn't know, and that was one of the problems.
Yes.
And one thing entrepreneurs often want to do is do everything differently.
Yes.
And that is both essential and also problematic in the sense of you don't have to do everything differently. You just have to do some things differently. And the question is, what is it you want to be doing differently, and what can you do the same way everybody else has figured out is the best way of doing?
Sure. Now, I mean, one of the things that I'm really interested in on my blog, and the things that I explore with most of the people that I talk to, is how businesses engage more and listen more to their customers. And I think there's some really nice stories in here. Well, particularly one of you, Barry, where you basically carrying around a satchel full of Honest Tea samples with you all of the time, particularly when you were raising investment. But I'm really interested in what you found most effective in terms of building advocacy and engaging with your customers and getting feedback from them. Because given that you had to do it as a startup and you didn't have a big budget, you had to do some creative things, right?
Well, let me give you a couple things.
Okay.
And it's something that I think many companies miss. For the first 10 years, Seth and I personally answered every email that came into the company.
Okay.
And that grew to, I don't know, a dozen or more a day at some point.
Uh-huh.
And the ability to read those emails was fantastic in terms of market research. And then the ability to respond built relationships with customers where they went and told all their friends about, can you believe it? I wrote to the company and the CEO writes back to me.
Yeah.
So that, I think this notion of delegating that to other people is really a missed opportunity. Today, Seth still reads every email, even if he doesn't respond to all of them. Right.
And that's just critical, not just for reaching and connecting with consumers, but also to understand what's going on in the marketplace. And, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on market research, and we get it every day.
Sure.
For free.
I mean, I think they think that there's an element of the way that we have traditionally structured sort of businesses in terms of leadership and hierarchy and organizational design, that the higher up you go in a company, the more distant you can become from the consumer or the customer.
That's exactly right.
And actually, we have to try and work really, really hard to reverse that and to stay connected.
And customers gave us great pushback. One wrote and said, you call yourself honest, but you say that there's 30 calories per serving.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks of 8 ounces a serving. They're going to drink the whole bottle. So why don't you fess up and say there's 60 calories?
Right.
And we said, you're right. That is the case. And so we changed our labels and put 60 calories per bottle on the label.
Right.
So I think that pushback can really help you.
And I think it's really important.
And just to add to that, what was funny was then we heard from consumers say, you double the calories in your drink. We said, no, we just did, we just doubled the amount of the size of the serving.
Well, you just got to, I guess you also got to realize you can't please all of the people all of the time, which might actually be another Abraham Lincoln sort of quote as well.
But you also have to be proactive, and as soon as, sort of try to anticipate the next step. And if you miss it, they'll let you know if you're listening.
Sure.
Another example is we tried to lightweight the bottle so we could use less material, save on shipping, and be friendly to the environment. But that new bottle ended up being too thin, and so to keep its shape, we had to have it under pressure. So you have a bottom that basically pushes up to create pressure. Okay. The end result is a lot of people thought that was a false bottom, and we were trying to pull one over on them. But it had the same size, same volume. It was just thinner plastic. And learning from customer feedback allowed us to quickly change our label and explain what was going on to show that we weren't pulling a fast one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, you grew the business over the course of 10 years from basically zero to it was about nearly $100 million, and then sold it to Coca-Cola, right? How did your customers react to that? And then also, how did you maintain the honestness, as it were, of the business, given that you just got swallowed up by a large corporate?
Yeah. So it was definitely something that our consumers questioned us on. They said, wait a minute, if you're so committed to organics and to lower sugar drinks, why are you partnering with a company that's not necessarily known for its commitment to either of those things?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we had a dialogue with them. We said, first of all, our mission and what we is literally in the bottle. It's the that's the way we make our drinks, and we're committed to this. But keep an eye on us and keep us honest. And if you see us in any way moving away from those core parts of our mission, let us know. And
Right.
and so we continued to have that dialogue with them. And I think the other thing people expected was we were going to try to find a way. We had always called it honest tea because it's real tea ingredients, real tea leaves, as opposed to sort of a powder or concentrate. And there too, we stayed and continue to make the product with real tea leaves. So we've been able to maintain that commitment, and I would say a lot of the customers who had some initial reluctance have come back.
Okay, that's great. I also think and there was an interesting part right towards the end of the book where you were in the story you were having a conversation with the CEO of Coke just post acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
and he turned around and there's a quote here. Quote here says, "This deal is not about making Honest Tea more like Coca-Cola. In many ways, we want to make Coca-Cola operate more like Honest Tea." That's quite an accolade, really, is it not? You must have felt really proud.
That was our ambition. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it is that we were happy becoming a partner with Coca-Cola. That as much influence we could have on our own, if we could help shift Coca-Cola 1%, that would be even more influence than we could dream of.
That's fantastic. So, for the benefit, I mean, a lot of our listeners and readers, they are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial leaders within larger businesses, and one of the things that I understand that they're really interested in is that the sort of the lessons learned by people going through a similar process to what you guys have gone through over the last few years. So,
Sure.
what can I ask you? What would you say would be the biggest lessons you've learned over the last few years, and what would you do differently if you had to do it all over again?
Seth, do you want to
Yeah,
take the lead?
sure. Certainly, one of the lessons learned was, you've got to come to market with a product radically different and better. You can't just be a Me Too product. It wouldn't be enough, for example, even if we just said, this is an organic bottled tea, and that's our only point of difference. In a market where the shelves are so filled, where there's so much, it's so overcrowded.
Yes.
You've got to really bring something, dramatically different for number one, for consumers to pay attention, and for retailers to feel there's a real need for your product. So that's a clear point, and I think often overlooked. Someone go ahead, Barry.
Economics says that, oh, if you're just 10% better, suddenly you're going to take over the whole market. But it
Yep.
doesn't work that way.
Yep.
And the fact is, your costs are worse, your production is worse, your distribution is worse, your brand recognition is worse. And so there has to be something that's so much better that will overcome all of those other handicaps.
Right.
And something that will get customers so passionate about what you're doing that they will become your advocates.
Mm-hmm.
We're fortunate in the sense that with tea, it's something that will be in your fridge. You'll share it with other people so you can tell the world about it. If it was laundry powder, it's not so clear that you would invite friends over and say, here, have some of my laundry powder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could get customers to just be excited about what you're doing, they will be able to tell the world.
Okay. And is there anything you would do differently if you had your time all over again?
Well, one of our most expensive mistakes was buying a bottling plant. It was costly. It was a huge distraction, and just really put up my energies in the wrong direction. But I think the bigger message there is really focus on what the long-term value you're building. And for us, when we did sell to Coca-Cola, we had already sold the bottling plant. But if we had it, it would not have been regarded as an asset. It would have been a liability and not something Coca-Cola would have valued. So really make sure you're building, what is really going to drive the value of the enterprise and not be a distraction.
Okay.
And let me add that understand how you create value is harder than what you think. When
Hmm.
we started out, our name is Honest Tea,
Yes.
and we thought the most important part of that name was tea. And
Yes.
so we were exclusively in teas. We went into tea bags.
Hmm.
And that really wasn't the place that we were creating value. It was the word honest.
Right.
A beverage company, a company, period, that people could trust.
Right.
And once we appreciated that's who we really were, it made other product lines just clear to us. So we went into a kids line. And
Yes.
essentially we took kids' pouches, cut the calories from 110 down to 40, made it organic, and it's become over a third of our business.
Wow.
So you'd think that people will go in understanding what they're really about, but you listen to the market and you really reflect yourself to figure out why you're creating value.
Well, exactly. I mean, I guess it's also the thing around staying open to feedback and understanding
Mm-hmm.
what matters to your customers. And you thought it was about tea, but actually it's about the honesty.
Yeah. And we started, of course, where it was about the tea,
Yes.
but it was bigger than that, and the market helped us see that.
Seth, did you want to add something?
No, that's exactly right. The word honest is much bigger than tea, and it's about authenticity and organic and healthier. And for that matter, it could be much larger than beverages. That brand and that concept can be, about food. It can be about, really about people reconnecting people to the natural world.
Absolutely. So, what's Honest Tea on the back of that? What's Honest Tea's and your plans for the rest of this year and beyond? I mean, apart from world domination, obviously.
Well, that is the plan, and we're working aggressively at it. We've been mostly focused on growing the brand here in the United States, and there's still a long way to go for that. We have just expanded. When Coke first invested, we were in about 15,000 outlets, and today we're in over 100,000. So that's growing, and now we're starting to talk with national restaurant chains to see if we can expand our tea into those types of venues.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also launched a line called Honest Fizz, which is a 0-calorie, naturally sweetened soda line.
Cool.
And
Excellent.
so that's just rolling out.
Excellent. And are you planning on taking the brand international as well?
That's certainly the hope. I would say, at this point that we've got a few more years to really build out the concept here in the United States. But look, tea is the world's second most popular beverage.
Yeah.
It's enjoyed in cultures all over the world, and so there should be a natural opportunity to sell an authentic bottled tea into most places around the world.
Wow,
Although I will say that the UK will be a challenge because people there drink hot tea with milk,
yes.
not cold tea in a bottle. And so that might not be the first place that we go internationally.
Well, but then I think Barry, I think one of the things you probably need to do is if you're going to come to the UK, you need to pick the sort of the markets within the UK, and I think somewhere like London is a market in of itself because it's so international. It actually could work on a more local basis, but actually with a local market which has significant size.
Absolutely. So I just can't get any of my English colleagues to drink the product over here. So.
No, we are somewhat wedded to hot tea with milk here. I think that is a bit sort of, but there are some people that are slightly more progressive. You'd be pleased to know. But finally, there's always one question that I finish these interviews on, and that is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
Well, we have to plug the book. We're so excited about it, and it really is. I mean, people say, "What's the one piece of advice you'd give somebody?" It's to read the book because there's so many lessons. There's not just points of inspiration. There's the lessons learned. There's all the mistakes that we made that on its own could save an entrepreneur more than $1 million. And it really gives a feel for what it's like. And I also think it can really help ground somebody, not just in sort of what's important to the business, but what's important in life and how to keep that in perspective as you take on the challenge.
let me add my plug to two other features here.
Uh-huh.
One challenge that entrepreneurs face is that not every good idea is a good business.
Sure.
And in particular, even if it's a good business, it may not be a good business for you because you could end up being test marketing for somebody else
Yes.
who is better positioned. And I think this book will help you appreciate the difference between a good idea and a good business.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a hard thing to get right at the start. And if you don't, you're not going to be able to fix it along the way.
Yeah.
The other aspect that I'm not sure we planned on when we started writing the book, but seems to be the case, is it's really been very popular with teens and 20-year-olds.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Many of the folks who got early copies, the book was lying out on their table, and their kid picked it up and read it without them forcing or even asking.
Yes.
And the challenge for many parents is their kids really have no idea what they do when they go to business,
Mm-hmm.
why the world of commerce is exciting and rewarding. And people often think of business as rapacious capitalists, or you have to make a lot of money like Bill Gates and then give it away to redeem yourself.
Yes, indeed.
As opposed to the business itself can be part of the mission. And so the idea that you can create a successful mission-driven business in a profit-driven world, I think is something that is going to excite the idealists among us and get the next generation excited about business. So that, to me, is particularly rewarding.
I think that's absolutely right, Barry. I think there's also I think it's also to do with the format as well. It's sort of being mission driven, but also having the format and how that will appeal to the millennial generation, as it were. And so, I mean, I must say, gentlemen, that I think you've done a splendid job with this, and I'll make sure when it all gets written up and things, we get it all linked up, and it will go out on iTunes and on the blog and on Twitter and everywhere else, because I think you've done a commendable job, and you should be not just proud of the business, but actually proud of the book and the message, because I think it's great. So thank you very much for writing it.
Absolutely. Well, you've been incredibly kind, and I'm wondering, did you interview the woman who founded the coffee chain in the UK?
Sahar Hashemi, no, I haven't interviewed her.
You know, in some ways, I think of us as the innocent,
Yes.
But of tea rather than juice.
I think so. I think there's a lot of parallels. I just think, and I think there's some growing communities around people that want to do things in a more, if you like, conscious way,
Absolutely.
and it's not being just all about the money, as it were. And I think the story that you've captured and you've told, and the experiences that you've shared, I think this is going to chime with a lot of people. So I wish you well with the whole endeavor. I think you've done a great job.
Okay.
Thanks so much.